Story 1. Streamers who go to extreme lengths for content seem to have a low moral compass. They are primarily motivated by money. They are willing to do anything to please viewers and label it as entertainment, such as shooting fireworks indoors, taking sledgehammers to walls, and constantly checking chat for reactions. They even ask the audience if they should engage in clearly immoral actions, and they do it anyway. Story 2. Some people are extremely stingy. I am not talking about being frugal or simply unable to afford things. I know individuals who earn between $200,000 and $500,000 a year and have over $1 million in investments in retirement savings, yet they pirate movies, regift used items, pinch every penny, and even keep a tally for their loved ones. I consider myself frugal. I save money regularly and look for discounts at the grocery store, but I have my limits. I may give a disapproving glance, but it doesn't affect me, so I choose to remain silent. Story 3. People who make fun of others for flinching have no idea what causes that reaction. It's important to understand that it is not a sign of cowardice. Story 4. People who do not bother to learn and grow their knowledge concern me. This came to mind because a friend recently told me he hates learning after completing his degree, which makes no sense. Why pursue a degree if you dislike learning? Many believe that education and school are synonymous, but that is not true. Education extends far beyond school, and with the technology available today, we should constantly strive to learn more. Learning does not only occur by reading textbooks. You can also learn through conversations with others, exploring different environments, and so on. I tend to be somewhat judgmental toward those who do not want to learn. Story 5. People who frequently make comments about their wealth in front of others who have much less should be more considerate. It's important to be aware of the feelings of those around you. This behavior is not driven by jealousy or envy. Story 6. As a Christian, I find that many individuals spread negativity and are rude to non-theists, which is unfortunate because it drives people away. Instead of being warm and welcoming, they create a negative impression. Story 7. When people brag about how few books they read, it's honestly sad to talk to someone in their 30s or 40s who boasts about only reading in high school. That is not the impressive statement you think it is. Story 8. Most people are not necessarily uninformed but misinformed. Strangely, many individuals would prefer to be called foolish rather than be told that the sources or information they received are illegitimate. Story 9. When I hear people making snide remarks, it instantly makes me judge them as not a nice person at heart. Story 10. The general public is often uninformed. This is not a value statement. It is simply an observation. People tend to avoid looking deeper than the surface and have become complacent in their pursuit of comfort. Story 11. Just because I have a dog does not mean I have to meet you and your dog. Maybe neither of us wants to meet the other. We just want to enjoy our own walk in peace. Story 12. People who lose their children to Child Protective Services due to neglect and abuse should be permanently sterilized. I understand that implementing this would lead to eugenics and racist policies and could never actually be done. Story 13. People who are poor and choose to have children, especially multiple children, are extremely irresponsible. Story 14. I can immediately tell if I like someone and will avoid talking to them if they do not meet my criteria. Story 15. When someone lives, breathes, and only thinks about politics, either side, it drives me crazy. However, I will never say anything to offend anyone, as those types are often the most sensitive. Story 16. I have a low opinion of people who are religious because I see no differences between religions and cults. Story 17. People who leave their shopping carts in random places should consider returning them. It only takes a minute or two, and it helps keep the area tidy. You're not going to miss much by taking the time to put it back. Story 18. Dependent, submissive individuals, particularly wives, intrigue me. I understand that feminism grants the right to live life according to one's own choices, but I struggle to comprehend the notion of consistently deferring to someone else. Story 19. The primary reason people are conservative is a lack of empathy, and the extent to which empathy is lacking correlates with the extent of their conservatism. Story 20. The shallowness and performative nature of human interaction is frustrating. There are many individuals who signal virtue but are afraid of conflict, adhering to social conventions to maintain harmony while essentially lying all the time. If being truthful is considered cruel, then lying could be seen as kindness in this context. I am not saying that people should be rude to each other. Certainly not. If you have a negative opinion, it is better to keep it to yourself. However, I cannot tolerate individuals who speak about virtuous ideals merely for appearances and do not act on them. Do not proclaim virtues that you cannot uphold. Story 21. Dog owners who treat their dogs as if they are people do so because they understand that if they had a dog, they would fall in love and care for it like a family member. Story 22. I can't stand grown adults who wear their emotions on their sleeves. I don't care if you had an argument with your wife before you came to work. That doesn't give you the right to be unpleasant. If you want to talk about it directly, sure, I'll listen, but I shouldn't have to guess that you are having a bad day. Story 23. I steer clear of extremely shallow and money-obsessed people. I refrain from pointing it out to them because I do not wish to see them live miserable lives. They may figure it out someday, hopefully too late. Story 24. People who like to showcase how wonderful their lives are on social media often overcompensate. From experience, I know there are certainly some hidden issues they are not revealing. Story 25. People who engage in casual sex without using condoms or physical protection, and instead rely solely on medication or take risks, are making a serious mistake. I refrain from saying this out loud because it may come across as judgmental and negative towards sexuality, but I find it difficult to understand how people can avoid taking more responsibility for their health. Story 26. Using literally instead of figuratively is incorrect. No, you didn't have a literal heart attack. That is an exaggeration. Story 27. People on the ketogenic diet seem to be part of a cult, as far as I'm concerned. It's all they talk about. I knew one person who refused to eat carrots and tomatoes because they have too many carbohydrates, and their breath smells bad. Story 28. I believe that parents should take care of themselves. There is a significant difference between prioritizing your children and neglecting your own needs. This neglect can have long-term effects on your children. If you are a parent who is not managing your health, emotions, or finances, you will eventually impact your children. If your children have the time and capacity to participate in multiple activities and you have a sufficient income to go on family vacations, you also have the resources, both time and money, to eat well, seek therapy, and exercise. Story 29. Many people admit they lack social skills, yet do not make an effort to learn how to communicate. This is not directed at individuals with disorders, but rather at those who are simply rude or have never learned to express themselves or listen appropriately. It is not fair to expect others to understand you while you put no effort into doing the same. Story 30. Child-free dog owners who look down on people with children yet treat their dogs like children are hypocritical. They claim to dislike children because they are noisy, smelly, and destructive. Yet they adore pets that share these traits. They believe they are superior for various reasons, but from an outsider's perspective, they are not different. Story 31. I feel that sometimes people know what they are saying is completely nonsensical, illogical, and irrational, but they still try to make their point across and argue, even if it is wrong or right from their perspective. Story 32. If you leave your baby in a diaper for more than one use, change them as soon as possible. If you know your child is wet and you leave them for hours because it has only been 2 uses, that is not appropriate. It is unhygienic. On a cloth diaper forum, a woman was asking about leaks because her baby's diapers were leaking after 4 hours. 4 hours seems excessive to me. It is better to change the diaper sooner. Story 33. I have 2. Parents who sign their children up for contact sports have access to a wealth of information about chronic traumatic encephalopathy and brain development. Children are sustaining injuries that can result in lifelong damage, but some prioritize winning regional playoffs in their area. Additionally, there are individuals who are still in love with someone or are hung up on them, yet they pursue casual relationships with others. This behavior can be harmful to everyone involved. It is important to address personal issues before bringing others into the situation. Story 34. There should be an age limit for retaking the driving exam. Elderly individuals with diminished reflexes should not be on the road. Story 35. I believe hookup culture is highly overrated. It leads to more unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections than it is worth, and it negatively impacts the dating experiences and marriage opportunities of people who do not even participate in it. Story 36. Listening to my coworkers spend hours discussing skincare products and online shoe shopping, only to give me a blank stare when I mention current events, is frustrating. They hardly follow the news and do not seem to care that the country is facing significant issues. This makes me feel both angry and sad. Story 37. Anime is a profoundly unappealing form of entertainment. I have always found it difficult to understand why so many people enjoy it. I simply cannot see the appeal. The art styles are impressive, certainly, but the writing, pacing, and poor action scenes create a combination I just cannot overlook. I do not want to see a fight scene interrupted by each combatant lunging at one another, only for one of them to remain suspended in the air for 5 minutes while explaining how they have become more powerful or how they will defeat their opponent. I do not need to hear the character's thoughts conveyed to me word for word constantly, especially when it adds nothing to the narrative. And I truly dislike the annoying noise that many anime characters make. I cannot describe it accurately, but it consists of little grunts or moans that they produce whenever they are surprised, or simply for no reason at all. It is disappointing. Story 38. People who tell it like it is, have no filter, or say they are just being honest are often just being cruel or rude without reason. I am not referring to those who are genuinely honest or direct while still being respectful, but rather to people who are rude and use that as an excuse. There is usually a nice, respectful, or at least neutral way to express opinions. I believe some individuals do not want to invest the energy to reframe their unkind thoughts, or they feel the need to belittle others slightly to feel superior. I also critique those who make excuses for such individuals, saying they are just direct and implying that the other person is overly sensitive. In reality, both individuals are simply being rude, and they should be more aware of their surroundings. Story 39. Entitled people believe that the rules do not apply to them or do not bother to find out what the rules are. The high school near me allows the public to use its track and field during non-school hours, but there are rules regarding how late you can use it and which lanes on the track are available, the 3 less used outer lanes. However, people either do not bother to read the signs or simply do not care. I will be very frustrated if the school starts closing the track during off hours because people cannot be bothered to follow the rules. This is just one example of the many things entitled people do. Story 40. Women who continue to have children when they cannot or choose not to parent them often do so for attention, a love for babies, or a preference for raising younger children over teenagers. Some may feel religious pressure against using birth control. Others may have children despite knowing they cannot care for them due to personal circumstances, such as substance use, financial difficulties, mental health issues, or incarceration. To clarify, I am not referring to individuals who find themselves in challenging situations while trying their best to raise their children. I specifically mean those who deliberately choose to have children without the intention or ability to care for them. This perspective stems from my own experiences as the oldest in a large family, where I often took on parental responsibilities, and from observing similar situations in other families. If you cannot or will not parent your children throughout their childhood, then it can be seen as a selfish choice. Having multiple children does not automatically make someone a good mother, and I disapprove of those who believe they have earned respect through the number of children they have given birth to. It is irresponsible to bring multiple children into the world without the capacity to care for them adequately. Story 41. It bothers me when people choose breeders instead of rescuing pets. I also think less of you if you visit zoos or places like SeaWorld. If they are rehabilitation centers, that is perfectly fine. Wild animals are not for entertainment. Story 42. I'm starting to really dislike the country of Israel and its people. I dislike how they commit atrocities and then act like victims when called out. I dislike being labeled anti-Semitic for disagreeing with them, and I dislike how they have influenced American politicians, undermining free speech. I have a strong aversion to those who harm children and attack hospitals. Story 43. I judge people for being obese, and I don't understand how that's controversial. It's not just about appearances. It reflects their mindset. It's similar to how I view an alcoholic, despite the lack of societal stigma against judging them. It suggests a lack of discipline when individuals allow their health to decline to that extent. I'm not referring to people who are slightly chubby. Numerous factors, such as genetics, contribute to that. However, being morbidly obese is never entirely out of your control. Story 44. When people are overly affectionate in public, it's one thing to hug a family member or friend, but when partners practically eat each other's faces, it's quite unpleasant. Story 45. People dislike being treated like children, but they dislike being treated like adults even more, yet they insist on having it both ways. Story 46. People who use ChatGPT and artificial intelligence have stirred my strong disapproval. When I hear others mention it casually, I certainly find myself judging them. Story 47. I cannot stand when people are constantly late, and I do not care what their excuse is. If it happens twice, fine. If it happens 3 times, it becomes an issue. Learn to plan ahead effectively and give yourself extra time in case anything goes wrong. Story 48. People who view others with differing political views as evil, dangerous, or foolish often create unnecessary divisions. My mother and sister are very left-wing, and I get frustrated hearing how most people are too foolish and hateful to be allowed to vote. The same applies to many of my far more right-wing coworkers. The LGBTQ+ community is not out to get anyone. This is especially annoying since we live in Australia. While there might be a growing Americanization of politics or the importation of foreign issues, we should not exacerbate these divides. It is also important to understand how our country's political system works. Story 49. Most people do not engage in self-improvement and find it difficult to admit their mistakes or accept constructive criticism. Many individuals lack the empowerment or courage to stand up for themselves and may feel irritated when others assert themselves. Instead of supporting those who do stand up for themselves, they may attempt to discourage them or label them as foolish or naive for believing they can advocate for themselves, especially when real power dynamics are involved, such as confronting a boss or a landlord. Story 50. It's really frustrating when people press their tongues the other way, down instead of up, to make an S sound, making it sound like it's halfway to an SH sound. I know they can't help it, and it's not actually a problem. I keep it to myself and would never say anything about it. Story 51. I was just discussing this, but I have 2 deep general hatreds. People who let their cats outside to destroy the environment and recreational drug users, including those who abuse alcohol. Story 52. I dislike tattoos. I have never seen one that looks good. I can't understand wanting one. I don't see why anyone thinks they are a good idea. However, I know that people get tattoos for various reasons that matter to them. It makes no sense to me why someone would draw on their skin to remember a loved one. But why should it matter to you how much sense it makes to me? Or even if you got it just because you think it is fun. My instinct is that it is silly. But my instinct isn't even reliable for my own decisions. Why should it matter for yours? Likewise, I always think they are unattractive, but why would my opinion on what looks good be important to you? Several of my good friends have tattoos. I dislike their tattoos, but that is my issue, not theirs. It is not important that they know I dislike tattoos. What matters is that I don't insult something important to someone else simply because of my personal opinions. I have not been able to stop my reflexive dislike for tattoos. I know it doesn't make much sense for me to dislike them as much as I do. Why do I dislike them? They don't affect me. I don't have to get one. You would think I would be able to at least not care about tattoos on other people. But no, I actively dislike tattoos. I think I am good at hiding my dislike. At least good enough that I haven't upset my friends with tattoos. So yes, I don't like tattoos. I don't think you should care that I don't like them, but I still can't stop disliking them. Story 53. If smoking marijuana and drinking are daily activities for you, and you are over the age of 25, it's time to grow up. Occasional use is fine, but if you are using them every day, multiple times a day, it may be time to find healthier activities. It is concerning to see so many individuals in this situation, especially those with children. Please consider your responsibilities before bringing kids into the world if you cannot take care of yourself. Story 54. Obesity is a choice and it is not body positivity. Some people gain weight for various reasons and become overweight, which is normal. In many cases, they have little control, but morbid obesity represents a significant lack of self-control. Unless someone has a major injury or illness that is a direct obstacle to achieving a healthier body weight, there is no excuse. Story 55. I don't care about your feelings unless we are very close. If I say something and you respond with, I'm offended, I couldn't care less. If you're protesting, I couldn't care less. I have enough stress in my life to care about something that bothers you. Story 56. I believe that people who drag their feet on the ground while walking without sandals are not the most intelligent individuals. Story 57. Many people should consider not having children, considering the children's well-being, especially those with less favorable genetics. Story 58. I believe that polyamorous individuals and those in open relationships, including those who engage in threesomes, are morally repugnant and not genuinely in love. However, I also think it is none of my business, so I keep my thoughts to myself. Such opinions are not well received in the liberal circles I frequent, so I choose not to engage with individuals in those types of relationships. Story 59. Almost all young adult fiction is poorly written. Almost all anime lacks depth. Every popular fantasy romance book available now is of low quality. The average adult consumes only children's content and adult films, and I view myself as superior if that describes you. Also, remember to sort by controversial for the most honest opinions. Story 60. People who flaunt their relationships on social media or write articles about them in newspapers, or casually reference them in unrelated situations, seem to seek validation. While I'm glad you found the love of your life, I wish you well for your future. However, boasting about it and writing articles is simply narcissistic gloating, and it may lead me to think less of you. Story 61. People who know nothing about world politics or current affairs and act as if they are knowledgeable but have never opened a book in their entire life. People who only discuss what to wear, what to eat, which restaurant to visit, and famous brands. Story 62. You could be the best person in the world, but as soon as you do the cute sneeze thing, I'm gone. No one sneezes like that. It physically repulses me. I once heard someone say, "It's so crazy that my sneeze is 3 octaves higher than my speaking voice." Story 63. Overweight individuals often consume unhealthy foods frequently, such as soda, candy, and crackers. It is not the mealtime itself that contributes to weight gain. Story 64. Your lip fillers look terrible. They are not natural looking, as you can barely tell. They are universally distracting, unattractive, and a total turn-off. I won't tell you to your face that you look like a blow-up doll about to burst or a corpse that has gone turgid after floating for 3 days in a lake. But you do. Story 65. Stupidity hurts. Why do others have to live with things being more complicated because some people are foolish? Spilling hot coffee on yourself. Does that really need a warning label? Perhaps if foolishness caused more pain, those who are foolish would not pass it down to the next generation. Story 66. I'll say online, but not so much to their face. Codependent individuals and people-pleasers drain your energy and make you feel guilty for having boundaries. I try to express this to them, but they always make me feel guilty for asserting my needs and focus on their own woes. It annoys me greatly. Story 67. If you smoke cigarettes, I do not want to know you. Your opinion does not matter to me, and I am leaving now. Story 68. More often than not, people are afraid of dying or losing their freedom to a job, leading them to say or do irrational things. It can be liberating when you truly understand this concept, but I rarely share this idea because of the way it makes people feel. Story 69. If you choose to have children, you may be considered selfish. I don't necessarily think we should limit people in having kids due to ethical considerations, but it still doesn't change my opinion. There are many ethical dilemmas involved. I often wonder if people would have continued having children during the Great Depression if modern birth control had been available. If not, would that have changed our current mindsets to feel less inclined to procreate? Environmental and economic issues, as well as societal and class conflicts, are relevant. Just be honest about wanting to have a child who you think will take care of you in your old age and carry on your lineage. Let's not even begin discussing trauma and how much we have learned about development in recent years. Story 70. Some people can be quite cringeworthy. I am not trying to be unkind. I simply feel uncomfortable with what you are doing, and it is cringe-inducing. Why are you making out in the middle of the hallway? Now everyone else is uncomfortable as well. I have seen many videos that suggest if you find everything cringeworthy, you are boring. Yes, if you think participating in Spirit Week is cringeworthy, then that can be somewhat dull. However, genuinely cringeworthy behavior is different. I am not saying that you should participate for any reason, but not participating because it feels so cringe is, in itself, somewhat boring. Story 71. There is a decency gap between people over 50 and those who are younger. I am in my early 30s, specifically 34 years old. In my office, I work with about 50 people aged 23 to 70. Many of the older individuals behave in a rude and volatile manner. I have a thick skin and personally do not mind, but others are affected. Several of these individuals have the mentality of, I just tell it like it is, but they are often simply unprofessional. If the roles were reversed and a 25-year-old displayed the same behavior, they would quickly receive a stern warning and potentially be fired. Not all of the older employees are significant contributors who deserve special treatment. Many of them do not perform well. I have noticed this strange double standard lately. Story 72. Autistic individuals often struggle to process empathy or read social cues, yet they may express frustration when others claim they can. This occurs despite the fact that the neurological structure of their brains poses challenges in these areas. Research shows that brains of individuals with autism spectrum disorder share similarities with those of individuals with primary congenital antisocial personality disorder, but this fact is often overlooked. Story 73. Unless you have an autoimmune disease or a condition that causes fatigue, it is entirely your responsibility if you are overweight, and I do not concern myself with the challenges you face due to being overweight. Story 74. I believe that nearly all women could benefit from wearing makeup. I keep this opinion to myself because I do not want to open that can of worms. I say this as a woman who wears makeup almost every day. Story 75. I keep this to myself for a reason, but people with many visible tattoos and piercings seem to be seeking attention, as if saying, look at me, I want people to think I'm cool. Story 76. Maybe it's because I was once a professional cleaner, but I notice how clean people keep their living spaces. I understand you can't clean all day every day, but please dust once in a while, wipe down your light switches, and fix your crooked blinds. Story 77. People who have unplanned pregnancies should consider the reasons behind their situation. There are few justifications, aside from assault or a legitimate belief in infertility. Story 78. Women who breastfeed. I'm a mom and I wonder why. I tried it and it was difficult. Why would you put yourself through that? Story 79. Most single mothers are not always good parents and may prioritize their own needs over the well-being of their children. Story 80. Legalizing cannabis was a decision by the government that intentionally affected underprivileged communities, hindering their progress in society. Story 81. I have strong opinions about individuals who believe that every job, regardless of its simplicity or low-stakes nature, such as bagging groceries, should provide every employee with a living wage. It is important to consider the many individuals in the job market who could take those positions, including retirees, young adults living at home, and those sharing expenses with a partner. This perspective is shared by many people on online forums, so I do not expect it to gain much visibility. I tend to remain silent when this topic is discussed, as there is no point in debating entitlement. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.